What's up, guys? It's Shane with Level Up Dev. I have a quick tutorial for you today about the CSS box model. Now, I just wrote an article about this on my blog to kind of guide you through it step by step, but I thought it would be better if I made a video showing you firsthand how to interact and use the box model. So the first thing you need to understand about the box model, when you're doing your layouts, it can get pretty frustrating and overwhelming at first when you're new to CSS, and things aren't going to seem to make sense at first. And for a long time in the beginning, I remember being so frustrated with trying to lay out certain elements a certain way, and the spacing and all of that. Excuse me. And until I really understood the box model, I was just confused. So I figured this could help out some of you guys who are just starting to learn CSS. So the box model basically renders every HTML element on your web page into two boxes. And that's determined by the height and the width that you specify for them. So if you know the basics of CSS, you have a style sheet or inline or however you're doing your CSS. You set the property for each element. So you're going to define a height and width. And then, along with that, you adjust the, color, font size, font family, etc. So the box model, as you see here, I made this infographic to show you. This is what it looks like. This is like the visual representation of what the box model is. So you have your HTML element here, which is the content box right here. So this is usually either an image or text. And H1 tag, any HTML element. Okay, this is the content. The next area right outside of that is your padding. This is the area between your content and the border, if you specify a border. Obviously, if you don't specify a border, then that would just, be invisible. There would be nothing there. Then it would just be the margin on the next area. Excuse me. So the padding, when you adjust it, it will push the content away from the border. Or actually, it will push the border away from the content. And the border works the same way. That's pretty self-explanatory. The border is as wide as you want it to be. And that sits right around the padding area. Now, the margin area right here is really, in my opinion, the most important and the most useful. I find myself using margin a lot in my day-to-day work on my job. Even with WordPress websites, there's a lot of CSS customization you have to do. And when you want to adjust an element on the screen, margin is usually the way you do it. So I'm going to jump over to CodePen.io. I have this set up just so I could show you an example. I have a div with a class container with the H1 here. Now, let me delete this. Okay, so here you have your content. It's your H1. Like I said, if we go back to, you have your H1 here. The next area is the padding. So let's adjust the padding. Let's just give it a general padding of 50 pixels. And you see how what that did to it. So you got 50 pixels in each direction, pushing the border area out from the content. So as you can imagine, you can use this for many different reasons, to space out content. If you have multiple items within one container, you can use this to space everything evenly. So the next area is the border. So let's give it a border. Let's say 5 pixel solid white. And there you are. There's your 5 pixel white border. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, margin. Let's do a margin left. What this is going to do is push the content box in whatever direction you tell it. So if I put 400 pixels, margin left, there you go. So you have 400 pixels right here on the left side. There are other ways if you're trying to center things. That's a whole nother conversation. But I want to show you what you can do with the box model itself. So the margin, say if we wanted to move it down, we could go margin top. Let's say 200 pixels. There you go. So as you can see, this is very powerful in the fact that you can move the element around and place it where you need it to be on the page. Now, when you start building layouts, you'll start learning things along the way, because a lot of things depend on what kind of display, whether you have an inline display or a block or an inline block. There's so many variables in CSS, so you'll learn that as you go. Now, you want to practice, use CodePen. I highly suggest using this, because as you can see, you have an area for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you get to see immediate output as you put your code. So it's a perfect tool to practice with, whether you're doing tutorials or any kind of online courses. This is a perfect way to practice or to make little mini projects, just to back up the skills you're already learning. And so we're talking about practicing. I want to show you guys the inspector area. This is, if you don't already know, every browser has inspector tools. So Google Chrome, which is what I use, if you right click on any element and you go to inspect, it's going to highlight that element. You can see this is an image element, but that's your content in this scenario. And if you go over to the right here under the Styles tab, scroll all the way down, you're going to see the box model representation. And you can see as you hover over each area, it's giving you the dimensions of the content itself, and then you can visually see by the colors how much margin, border, and padding you have. So you can learn a lot from experimenting with the inspector. So for instance, on this image here, it already has a padding top of 109 pixels. You can literally go in here and just play around with the code. And you see the padding, it's pulling the whole element up. So now if you look at it, you see the padding there. Okay. Let me refresh. So that sets everything back to default. All right, so what if I want to see the green padding at the top? If I wanted to add a margin, let's say margin left 400 pixels again. And you see it immediately reacts and pushes the Google logo over to the right. And if you did margin right, you can guess what would happen. And as you hover over the property, you can see that margin area. And see padding is green and margin is the orange. So it's a real good indicator when you're practicing. So you can go to any web page and inspect and look at the source code here and play around with you can literally do anything on any web page, you know, and it will, as soon as you refresh, it will go back to the default code. So this is a great way to practice, to get used to working with layouts, see how other people are doing their layouts, and let's see what would happen if we tried to add a border. See, 5 pixels, solid, black. You already see it. Play around with the padding. I just wanted to show you guys what's possible with just this inspector tool. In Firefox, if you use Firefox, I think it's called Developer Tools or something like that. But yeah, if you're beginning learning about HTML, CSS, this is a good place to start, and you can learn a lot. But I wanted to just to share that with you guys, and I hope it was useful for you. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'll have more in-depth tutorials coming soon, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what other kind of tutorials or content you would like to see. I appreciate you watching. Check the links down in the description.